start with saying who we are because we are all with the Nerds of Color. So my name is Laura. I'm managing editor for the Nerds of Color. So and I'm of Thai Chinese descent. So Mike,
Sure.
or you guys?
Mike Manalo, also with the Nerds of Color, obviously, and of Filipino descent. But yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was doing something. Trying to jazz up my background to Raya instead of Marvel, because it's all about Raya. I am Kuyapi, a.k.a. Patrick Michael Strange. Yeah, rocking it with the rest of my NOC friends here of Filipino descent, Mestizo, Mestizo Mafia. And yeah, I also do Show Pal Show, one of our Filipino-centric podcast with the Nerds of Color. Very proud of it. Hope y'all can check it out. And very honored to be amongst my squad here.
I'm Lauren Lola. I'm a contributor for the Nerds of Color. I am a mixed race Filipino American, and I'm the one who orchestrated this conversation because I think that from the reviews that are out there so far, we haven't really heard too much from people who actually are of Southeast Asian, and those are the points of views we need to amplify more because that's who is the focus of this film of Raya the Last Dragon. So I wanted to get into it. First of all, everyone here has seen it, right?
Yes. It's
Okay.
amazing.
So good.
Yeah, so what are your general thoughts on it?
For me, I guess I'll go. And look, it's Raya. How to represent Raya, not Marvel right now. I thought it was fantastic as a father of a 13-year-old young female who's, just learning her way and finding her own way, having strong role models and people that she can look at on screen that represent her. I thought it was amazing. A really good story and a story that's needed for right now with, just so much animosity going on in the world, and we're all separated as people. It's all about community. It's all about getting together and food, which is very Asian and very something I love, especially as a Filipino, but just cultures combining together and coming together that was once separate and now just, finding that love again with each other and just building. And so I just love that representation and, having a young daughter just to have something that she can relate to. Because as a young Asian guy myself, I didn't have many of that other than maybe Kung Fu films, and that wasn't cool. It was somewhat very stereotypical. This is just great. I just love it, and it was really well done.
Awesome. Laura, what about you?
Yeah, when I saw it, I really did love the artwork and the animation styles, like the cinematography and the way that the animation was just beautiful. And the storytelling, it's a great story. Like, it's about trust and family, the relationship between her and her dad, like that was like really touching. And then the aspects of Southeast Asian culture sprinkled into it. That was really important because I recognize so much. I think we all recognize a lot of the stuff that was inside with regarding Raya, including even some of the names. And it just felt really special for me because it's like obviously Southeast Asians are largely ignored, other than when it comes to our trauma, especially with the Vietnam War and like just like Thailand regarding sexism and sex tourism. We always have those kinds of situations, and so it's actually nice to have something painted in a positive light for kids that kind of just is a story about like a girl with her family and being a hero and saving her people, and also she's a princess, so it's kind of nice to have we finally have a Disney princess. So yeah, I really felt connected with the story, and even if it wasn't like a Southeast Asian culture, it's a good story, like a good Disney story. So but when they added the elements, I connected to it a lot more. So it is a really good story. Like I overall liked it. I mean, obviously we're going to talk about some of the issues, but
Of course.
overall I really like the story.
Yeah, definitely. And it's so funny, well, not so funny, but like, it's good that you mentioned that she's a Disney princess. I did the math earlier, and this is the only Disney princess that's not a musical. Like, out of all the other ones.
Oh yeah,
One's
Yeah.
not a
this was a
musical.
musical so badly.
There's moments that could have been a musical. That would have been nice to
like
have
Boone
a
with
bursting
the
song.
That could have been a musical. He could have had his own song, but I digress. Like, go on.
I mean, I have some thoughts about that we could dive into in a little bit. But Mike, what about you? What are your thoughts on it? I mean, you did a review of it for the Nerds of Color.
Yeah, I
A
definitely
great
did.
review, by the way.
Oh, thank
Yeah.
You should read it. It's so
honestly,
good.
honestly speaking, I didn't realize we had a 1,500 word limit, so I apologize. For
No,
anyone
yours
out
was only
there.
2,500. It
Oh,
was good.
2,500.
Because I edited
Okay.
it. It was good. It was a great article.
I
It's
appreciate
very
it.
detailed. Like yours is very detailed. Like I felt like you were missing a beat.
I think for me, you know, I think we can all say that we're huge Disney fans. Like all of
Oh
us
yes.
grew up watching these sorts of movies before and everything like that. I called this in my review a game changer, and I know a lot of people are probably going to be like, it's not really a game changer. To me, it is. You know, Disney took forever. They took decades to start trying and exploring different cultures and different stories from different cultures or inspired by different cultures. I don't think before Mulan you really had anything that reflected a whole lot of Asian culture. Maybe Aladdin a little bit, but of course, and Lion King to a degree, but those are animated cats. But to really have people of color, it's very rare. It's very few and far between. For every Aladdin or Mulan, you've got 50 Frozens. You know, and for every, you know, and don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with those stories, but to finally get a chance to dig into Southeast Asian culture and those types of stories and that type of mythology and those types of beliefs, in the same level that you gave, you know, Maori folks, Moana, you know, a chance to explore that culture. It's really great that we're finally starting to tell other stories. Other than Princess in a Faraway Castle who's white is rescued by a prince who's white, you know, and there's a dragon somehow or another. Not just that, to give, you know, people of Southeast Asian descent their own princess, but more than that, make her effing Batman and Indiana Jones, and not a dress wearing, you know, princess, you know, that goes to balls and stuff. To give her a freaking whip sword. That is awesome right there. That is what we want. That's storytelling that not only is representative of how cool, you know, Southeast Asian culture can be, but also what we're looking for in princesses today, you know, in terms of female representation as well, and the kinds of characters that kids need to look up to these days. I loved this movie so much, as you guys know from my review, and I think it's, you know, I really hope that it persists. I know it had kind of a muted weekend at the box office because of a lot of reasons, like Cinemark didn't play it and all that stuff. But I honestly think that given how good this movie is, we're going to hear about this, and we're going to continue to hear about this and see people dressed up as Raya for years and years to come, because it's such a lovely, wonderful movie that hopefully people will eventually see, if not now during lockdown, sometime in the future. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely, on everything everyone else is saying. I guess just to add perspective to my end, like, I don't know how old everyone is, but for me, I am a millennial. I grew up during the Disney Renaissance. So I remember most of the films that came out during that era. But yeah, I was a little kid when Mulan came out. I remember that, and of itself, being as young as I was, I knew then that this was very different from previous Disney films, and that it was probably going to lead into a different direction for other Disney films going forward. And so to see Raya, I mean, the people who are commenting saying that it's not a game changer, I think it's because we're already so used to seeing a lot of films out there outside of Disney and whatnot that feature, you know, strong independent women. Not to say and you know, obviously Disney has had their fair share of them as well, but to see Raya is like, it is next level because for multiple reasons. Like, for one thing, it's like what you were saying earlier, she's not some, you know, helpless person in a castle far, far away. She's on the ground. She's been training like her whole life. She has trust issues, which I find very relatable. Again, we could get into that in a bit. Yeah, I mean, there's just so much I can say that I'm sure I could say more as we go on with this conversation. But yeah, I mean, I think that this is taking on an even more different direction for Disney. And I think we're going to see even more to come now that Raya is out there. So I guess next I want to go over is the plot. What do we think of the plot? What do we like about it? What do we not like about it? What part of the plot confuses us? I definitely have some notes, but I want to ask all of you first about it.
I know Mike and I had this discussion, and Mike had some good points about the plot. So, I
So
wanna hear
before
more.
you go, Mike, let me just say spoilers, because I want us to like really get into it too. Because
Oh yeah, yeah.
I saw the
If you haven't
apprehension.
seen
So
if you haven't
spoiler
seen
alert.
it, yeah, if you haven't
Yeah.
seen it, don't watch this. Come back
Yeah.
after you've watched it.
And if you haven't seen it, but you're sticking around for spoilers, when the Avengers finally get together in this movie, and, no, I'm kidding. The story, in my opinion, I think it's a very good story. And when you think about movies today, and Disney movies in particular, what I love about them is they're starting to get to a point where they're evolving into real world messages. These aren't just follow your dreams, kind of stories. When you take a look, going back to even Zootopia, you get stories that are so relevant to the real world. And I don't know if there's a story that you could tell right now that is as relevant as a divided nation needing to put aside their differences to come together for the greater good. We are living in a broken America and in broken times where trust is ridiculously hard to maintain right now in the people sitting next to us. Not in this chat room. I trust all of you guys, just for the record. But like in general, it is becoming really difficult. So the sheer fact that they had the guts to tell a story about that is nothing short of admirable, and I love that. I absolutely love it. I also love that they went dark enough to do Mad Max Apocalyptic Wasteland here, with people on freaking like cool little animals going around trying to save a world that's been doomed already by their own, flaws. I love that so much. The story and the plot to me aren't so much of an issue as much as I think the screenplay might have needed a little bit of tuning up. Like, I think it's a little heavy-handed. I made a joke in my review, and I'm absolutely dead serious about it. If you took a shot every time they say the word trust in the movie, you're going to end up drunk by the end of the movie. And you don't need to hammer that point across with a sledgehammer. It's a very important point. You absolutely need it. I love it. But when you take a look at movies as subtle as How to Train Your Dragon, I compared it to Zootopia, I compared it to as well. They delivered the message in such a meaningful and impactful and emotional way without having to hit you over the head with it or have somebody say the word trust every 5 seconds. But it's a minor criticism in an otherwise a great story that I really enjoyed and really liked. And the mythology behind it and the world building that they crafted, aces completely all around, in my opinion. But what did you guys think? I'm sorry, I kind of ranted there for
I just want to add with what you said, Mike, real quick. It's like they switched out with trust from honor, because every Asian movie has to be all about honor. So this one we're gonna just switch it to trust.
Someone should
Y'all
probably
know what I'm talking
count
about.
how many times the word trust is used throughout Raya and the Last Dragon.
Yeah.
You need to
No, I was thinking about honor. It's like, but you have to honor. I'm like, but you have to take the first step for honor. Patrick, you want to add on to that or no?
Oh no, yeah, I did just that little buzz thing real quick. But yeah, go ahead. I'll hit it there.
No, it's just like Mike. I agree with everything Mike said. It's a great story. The storytelling was good. I understood why they hammered in trust and they repeated it because it's for kids with like for kids to get that into them. But us adults, we already kind of know these things, so it's different. Where so like if versus like my sister's like coworker's kid is like obsessed with this movie and he's a kid, but he's just like the screenplay. He was like, this is perfect. It tells me the story, and so I just see it from his eyes regarding like how they're telling the story for like children, because like yes, Disney is for everyone, but it's originally for kids. Like this is for them to grow up with, and if it's a plus for us to see ourselves, that's great too. That's important too, but it's like this is for the generations, but this is for future generations to go on and on. But yeah, the plot was really good, like the trust issue. I had some issues with like some of the plot of regarding when they go to different towns and stuff. Because they like I do love that different towns have displays of different Southeast Asian culture. It's just that the whole time Sisu is being disappointed by humans, but she still has this over-ending hopefulness, and I'm kind of like, where are you getting this hopefulness after being like shown like this trust between like when it comes to the old lady, when it came to Namari, and when it came to being captured initially by Tong. So it's kind of like I was like, man, this is a never end. Like I appreciated the hopefulness she had, but at one point it's like, man, like how often do you have to keep trying to believe that people are good? But I did appreciate that. But at the same time, as an adult, I'm like, you would have been, as an adult, you would have been like, all right, you're right. Don't trust people. Like they're the worst. But yeah, that's it. But everything else was great.
Yeah, because since we're just on like overall plot and message, I really didn't have any qualms with it. I thought it was great, and would echo everything that already Laura and Mike said. So yeah, for me, that's already been touched. So I think more so my issues, which I know we're going to get into very soon, is the gripes. So I'll leave it for that. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the topic of trust goes, I mean, for me, it's like, ugh, too real, but in a good way. Not just because of what's been happening the past year and the past 4 years, 5 years, whatever, but I mean, like I've been having trust issues my entire adult life. So I feel like this movie was made for me, even beyond the fact that the lead is Southeast Asian, but just on the focus of trust alone and having to be reminded of that as an adult. Like, yeah, we know, to be wary of who you trust. We know that. But I think what this movie is telling us to not shut off everyone that you encounter. And like you even see as Raya goes along her journey that she, even though she doesn't verbalize it, she accepts trust as it comes along, as she encounters Boone, as she encounters Noi, and I forget what kind of monkeys those are, but you know what I mean. And as she encounters Tong, when she's asking Tong for his help, that's her, opening herself up to trust him. And he returned the favor. So like even in between scenes where she's saying, I don't trust anyone, it's like you're clearly showing that you are capable of trusting others because you have this band of people from all the other lands helping you out to save the world. So I think it hit the note quite well on that. But yes, I also do have some nitpicks and critiques that I think we might as well just go ahead and dive into right now.
Yeah. I think yeah, but yeah, if you want to start with the critiques that if you want to.
Okay. Yeah, so I have quite a few. Okay, where do I even begin? All right, so speaking of trust, when Raya gets betrayed by Namari, when she takes her to see the dragon gem and then she basically kicks her in the back for real, I'm like, part of me is like, why would you show this thing that your generations of your family's been protecting to a girl you just met? I mean, like, I don't mean to victim blame Raya, but it's like you kind of set yourself up for this when you just gave in to her like that. You know what I mean? So that's one. I guess another continuity error, well, this is a continuity error I have, is that I'm kind of wondering like if there was any magic in the 5th piece of the gem, the one that Fang was guarding, because we see that Sisu, she has her magic already with her, which is the ability to be a strong swimmer, and then she collects her siblings' magic over the course of the journey. So I'm just kind of wondering, like, is there a magic to gain from that 5th gem? Like, if she had touched it, what would happen? Because we didn't see her put her magic in the gem. She's the one who used it to, scare away the drone the first time around. So that's something I'm a little confused about. And then what else? I don't know about you, but they didn't really make it clear as to why the dragons didn't come back the first time around. Like they were still stone when all the humans were turned back to normal. So I don't know, I was a little confused about that, and they didn't really make it clear. And so I actually saw a review a few hours ago saying that it was because of the fact that the humans didn't trust each other. But I feel like that was the result of the dragons not coming back. So, I mean, I don't know. I thought that was a little weird. And so to see the dragons come back by the end of the film, I thought it was good, but it was a little weird when that didn't happen the first time around. So I don't know. I guess I wouldn't call it a continuity error. I just would have like more explanation.
Yeah, no, I
yeah, go ahead.
on that because I had to watch, like, like you, when I first saw it, I was like, why the heck did Raya bring the Mari? Like, what the heck? But then when I watched it again, I was like, you know, the dad was like, you have to take the first step. You need to like build bonds, because like he welcomed a whole bunch of people to his kingdom. So I think she felt a connection, especially since Namari showed something she shouldn't have, like to Raya, and like they just were bonding, and I
Mm.
feel like they it's the one make take the first step kind of thing, and that's Raya taking the first step and showing her, you know, hey, I'm going to trust you, like you trust me to see this map that you're not supposed to show people or have, and then like let me show you what we have. And I feel like that was like, because I paid attention more to this one, where it was the okay, I get that. The second one was the second one that you said regarding, wait, what was the
Oh, it was like regarding the magic and the piece of the
oh
gem
yeah,
that Thing has.
yeah, I don't think we got to see it. Maybe it makes her extra strong swimmer, but 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 the end, I actually asked them, and it was off the record when I asked, but it was like a casual, like so the the Droon are made from human discord, so the Droon are discord, and the dragons use their energy to fight them off. So it was created by humans. So the only way that, you know, the dragons could come back is the humans come together to save Kumandra. But the humans didn't do that. The dragons made that sacrifice. So they didn't come back, but the humans did. And so I think the humans needed to make that sacrifice in order to bring the dragons back.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense.
Because the Droon are from human discord. Like, I think I asked one of the questions that I'm like, humans, the Droon are made from human discord, and you know, like what the bringing it back, and how it takes the humans to come together to kind of bring everything back to normal. Because the dragons are just like trying to do their part, but they weren't the ones creating the evil.
That is true. Yeah, that makes a lot more sense when you put it that way.
Mike?
Oh, well, I was going to say a theory about that second one, but yours just cracks mine over the head. So I'm not gonna say that either. You know, I again, I thought it had to do with the Infinity Stones, so never mind.
The Dragon Stone is the final one on the coin.
No. So I'm not gonna go into that one, but I will try and defend our girl Raya. In, you know, for letting Namari see the dragon gem. In my opinion, I think it's more of a character building step as far as the narrative is concerned. You first off, I blame her ba completely, because he's the one that told her she needs to trust people before that whole ceremony, so it's his fault entirely. No, I'm kidding. But the thing is, when you do think that it is your obligation to fight off people, and your dad tells you to take that first step, and then you meet someone who you've never really had a close friend before like that, because you're kind of closed off from the rest of the world, and that person, to Laura's point, is showing you something forbidden, and it seems like you guys hit it off, and you're going to be naive about it, and you're going to be young about it like she is, and you're going to make that mistake. But from a character standpoint, it's also telling you that in the rest of the 90 minutes of this movie, you know, she's not trusting people, but she inherently has that potential inside of her because it existed some time before. Maybe to a fault, but it's still there inherently, that ability to trust. So every single time that you're, you know, seeing Raya and you're reminded that she's cut herself off from people and Sisu is kind of pushing her to trust people, you like Sisu know inherently there's something deep inside that could change that. And she is capable of taking that first step again, because even though it was a mistake, she took it that first time. That doesn't go away, even if you grow up and even if you have mistrust. And if it does go away, you can relearn it, you know? And I think they needed an extreme example to get that point across. Again, the sledgehammer instead of the subtle hammer. But I do think that it was necessary for us to see that, to remind us that she has that capability and that she has that capacity later on. But that's potentially my 2 cents. I did want to address. You had another question that I thought was fantastic, but I'm not entirely sure what the answer would be, which is why the dragons stayed stone. Oh, well, the first time versus, and I think maybe it does go back to Laura's point about human discord. Maybe the reason that the Druin were even so easy, yeah, it was so easy for them to come back and the dragons remained stone was because that element of human discord still sort of existed, perhaps, and maybe that's why. But that's the only theory that I have for that third question that you asked. And yeah, the
I
second
mean,
one,
it makes a lot of sense in that regard, because in the end we see the gang turn to stone, all in the hopes that their trust in one another will restore the world back to the way it was. So yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense in that regard. And also, like, again, I feel bad for attacking, young Raya, bringing Namari to the Dragon Gem, but I don't know, like, my adult brain just, like, cannot comprehend the logic behind that.
no, don't feel bad. That was a stupid move.
Yeah. I want to add again. I echo what Laura and Mike said, but another thing that wasn't brought up was she was shown the map, but was also given this amazing dragon necklace, which is what she uses later on when she sees Minari. That was the character's name, right? Minari, to give that to her to show that trust, well, to possibly show that trust to kind of come together again. So that was very important. So
a gift. They kept saying,
yeah.
bring a gift. And then she brought a gift.
Exactly. So that was a very key point with that object beyond the map.
But I promise you, Lauren, no one will ever attack you for pulling apart that scene, because that's a dumb move.
Yeah.
Everybody was like, what the hell are you doing? So
Yeah, my mom and my brother watched it the other night, and even they saw where it was going. Like, oh, she's going to show her the Dragon Gem. Oh, yeah, there we go.
Well, that's the basis of her trust. So I think we needed that for like Mike said, for character development. This Bantari is the one who caused me to distrust people. Oh, and she's still in my life, And in the end, it takes her to trust her. So I appreciated that part.
Yeah. What other qualms do we have about the film?
Well,
in terms of plot.
In terms of plot, I think we're good to move on to the next portion. That I think we're all like burning inside our souls.
Okay. What do we think?
Before the big one, because
Patrick.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. I was because I know what the big one is. So before we get to the big one, I think in regards to, we see all these different cultures and communities. One thing that I would have liked to have seen is like in the more Afrocentric, indigenous, darker skinned Asian. We there was, because we had like, the northern, like mountainous region, just the various, we covered all the regions of culture and communities, but there are some more darker skinned Asian representation, that I would have liked to have seen within those different cultures. So just a general observance. I know there's a lot that they're trying to cover, but we Asians come in various shades and kinky hairstyles and straight hairstyles and all of that. So they're really good with covering all that, but that was kind of like one of the fine things I was kind of looking for, being that my wife is African American, my daughter is a mixed child, Filipino and Black, so I was looking for that, and didn't see really, I don't think anybody have that kind of features to a degree. So just a general observance, but not one that was major. But again, with us, advancing, just keeping that in mind, that we all don't look alike, and we don't, we all different have shades and stuff.
I was really happy with the scene when there was a group of people. I do wish there was more diverse, because like there is like other tribes, like the indigenous tribes, that I wish were represented.
Exactly.
The Karen tribe and all that stuff from different parts of like Southeast Asia. I did appreciate the skin tones though, like, because
oh yeah,
typically you see the pale skin, and in Southeast Asia colorism is such a big deal, like where
exactly
we bleach our skin and all that stuff, like to like whiteness is beauty, and I'm glad that the filmmakers knew that Southeast Asians, we're of darker skin, olive tones, and just like we're comes in so many different shades, and the darker skin like people like in Thailand and everything, they often get ignored in our own media. So it's important that we see like it represented in an American kind of film, because we also in America have different shades of like Asians, like Southeast Asians here, and we already get ignored in our countries like Thailand, Philippines, all that stuff. So I'm glad that the film showcased it, because this is an important film to showcase Southeast Asians and how we look. So I did enjoy seeing, like, I do wish we saw different features, more features of the indigenous. Like I know the Karen tribe has like rings around their neck and like
Yeah,
like
yeah.
and to showcase like prominent necks, and just different aspects of different cultures, and so I would have liked to see that. But I did really appreciate the color schemes, like different ones, because like I've seen those patterns in different cultures too.
Yeah, I definitely agree on all of that. And I'm trying to think about like, why they didn't decide to go that extra mile. But then I think about what was written in the production notes, because 3 of us did press for Raya and the Last Dragon. And you'll notice that they said how, they wanted to find the common ground among the Southeast Asian cultures that they were exploring and kind of bring them together into what is Kumandra. Because they didn't want to make like, this place supposed to be like Vietnam, this place would be like Cambodia, because then that might give the wrong message of, oh, this place is bad, don't go there in real life. So I don't know, maybe that mindset kind of also translated into the physical appearance of the characters as well. Maybe, I'm not sure, I'm just theorizing.
I like that Benja looks like my uncle. Like he legit looks like my uncle.
Oh,
So,
really?
Like I showed my uncle and he was just like, "Oh yeah, we have the same eyes and nose." I'm like, "Yes." And the dark skin too. So I was just like, "Oh my god, they made my uncle." He's Thai, he's
That's
full 100%
awesome.
Thai, so it's actually really cool to see that.
That's awesome. I wanted to talk about the characters. What do we think of them? And, what do we like about them, what we don't like about them?
Mike or Patrick, you want to go?
Let Kuya P take this one.
I thought the characters were great. A good mix. We had babies. We had large lumbering adults. I thought that was great. We got to see Aquafina in dragon form and in human form. I thought the characters were fantastic. I'm still waiting for the big elephant in the room, which is like the big thing was that, just the voices could have been different. Although, playing devil's advocate, I understand also from a producer standpoint with why they did what they did, but then it is Disney. I actually had a huge discussion. I'm part of a group of Filipino actors, and we had a discussion within our group about this. So that's kind of what I'm looking for. The characters I think were fantastic,
Yeah,
but
I mean,
I'm ready for that.
Yeah, Patrick, it is
conversation.
going to be brought up. It will be brought up in a bit. But I wanted to focus
Okay.
on just the characters themselves right now.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I thought the characters outstanding. I really didn't have any qualms with any of the characters. I thought the story and the characters were really well done for me. Sorry, I can't be of any more help to break that down.
No, like
I loved it. What can I say?
Yeah,
No,
no.
I love the characters. Boone was my favorite character, and Noi too. Like I did appreciate that. Like even though they have a wave of dark skin, they did show the light skin, because there are like Southeast Asians who also have like paler complexion. So like I have the light shining on me, so I'm typically not this. I'm not light like this, but like I do have family members who are not like doesn't have any Chinese blood, but they're Thai, but that their skin just they can't tan, like, and they burn. And so it's actually nice that Noi has that little mix of her inside her. But I appreciate the characters. Like I love Tong. I love his story. Like without even saying anything throughout the like when he lost his people, you see the crib. And I think Patrick, you and I both can agree on like as parents, so parenthood, you see the
heartbreaking.
Yeah, the loss of like your child, your family, and like yes, it's sad about Boone, and like they all have this common shared loss, and it's so emotional because you don't even need to say it. Like the Ongi was the one who told them her Noi, the last one was like this, and you knew, and they all had this shared experience of losing someone so close to them, and then that's their will to want to fight and bring them back. because like it was just like it all came together, and it just was such, the characters each contributed their own, and he just, it was just each story. They, like, I fell in love with all these characters. Like Boone is this great character, which is why I wish each of them had their own musical. Like, 'cause then I feel like with the songs, like I would love to hear Boone sing about food, about what him making the food, and I'm like Captain Boone, and then it's like whole song about the music, the thing. I wanted their Noi to really have a voice and sing about chasing and like Han, when Raya's running after her. And I would love to see Tong like have his song, like, what am I gonna do to you guys, when he's tied them up. This is what I'm gonna do to you guys, and he just sings. I, in my head, I had these songs for them, but
You need tales of Kumandra. I want all the tales of all these characters.
yeah, like these characters are
further illustrated. Yeah.
they're just so they're well rounded, and like I
Yes.
just love that shared loss. But Tong, man, I think just seeing that crib, I don't cry often, but my eyes burned
Yeah.
from from that scene, and it was just so simple.
Yes.
But yeah, that's I really love these characters.
I will say, and it's, hopefully no one hates me for saying this. If I had to pinpoint one weak link as far as character development goes, it's definitely Sisu. I think when you take a look at Raya and Namari, to me they were my favorite characters, particularly Namari, because these are very complicated characters. They're not just these two-dimensional characters. Everything Namari does, despite it potentially being villainous or wrong, it's for a sympathetic and understandable cause. And the world in this movie is at a place where anyone would make those same decisions. So you can't hate them, but really, doing these things and their motivations, the motivations between Raya and Namari for the ways that they act and the ways that they do and the things that they think, it felt so real. I love the side characters so much as well, for the same exact reasons that Laura mentioned, and that's the subtlety that I really wish was spread throughout the movie, was the same type of approach that they had with Tong's character. In one scene, not even a speaking moment, you get everything that you need to know about his character. The same with Boone, and I think when they're talking about the Droon, and they both put the blossoms in the river and are kind of saying a prayer, you know everything that you need to know about them. And to Laura's point, the monkey just doing this, the Ongi doing this, is all you need to know about Noi, and that there's some greater commonality here that factors into and what they represent to the greater potential of Kumandra to put to come together. I think that's very valuable to have. With Sisu, I understand she is the voice of persistent hope, and I get that, but I wish, to Laura's point earlier, there was some sort of reason or motivation behind why somebody would be that optimistic about humanity. We're not really told anything about that in the movie, and I kind of wish we were. And I hate to say it, as much as I am a big fan of Awkwafina. I think Disney probably brought her on as a stunt casting call, to have the Robin Williams genie basically in this movie, or the celebrity voice, that's the celebrity comedian voice that's going to steal the show with all the quips. I don't think it landed as hard as it should have, and part of that is the humor. Part of that is Sisu does some really stupid things throughout this movie. You don't dislike her; it never gets to that point, but I will say that I would have traded, 100 Sisus for a single Timon and Pumbaa or a single Robin Williams genie or something like that. She worked okay as a sidekick and a voice of the the literal theme of the movie being told to you every 5 seconds, but it just didn't. The character wasn't as fleshed out or as relatable to me as the rest of the crew of sidekicks, or Namari or Raya herself, and I kind of wish that they kind of explored that a little bit deeper.
That puppy line is my favorite, though. That puppy line
It was
is like
funny.
the ultimate favorite. I still laugh at that line. Like,
It's one of my favorite lines in the entire film.
I'll give him that. But yeah. What about you, Lauren?
Yeah. Yeah, I think all the characters are great. I mean, unlike Mike, I think I might like Sisu maybe a little bit more than him. I described to someone recently that she's like a less annoying Mushu. If you know what I mean. Like, yeah, Mushu's trying to help Mulan out, but Sisu is kind of like has a very vital role in all this. So she is taking it seriously in that regard. And as to, to address your qualm earlier, Mike, about, why don't we have more information about why she's so trustworthy? Yes, I think that could have been addressed a little bit better, but the way I see it, I think because of the fact that this is not the first time she's seen this happening, where the German is taking over the lands, and that, her sibling sacrifice stuck with her so much to where that, she can't really see otherwise, maybe. I think that's probably, the answer to why she is so willing to trust others, even it might be a little bit questionable at times. But yeah, that's just my take on that. But otherwise, huh?
I said it's a really good take. I didn't think about it that way. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, because like when she's telling her story to Raya, like that happens maybe like 2/3 of the way through the film. So it actually is quite a while before we find out about all that. So I don't know. I think the fact that we're wondering this whole time why she's so open and so trusting, the fact that we have to wait this long before we find out why she's like that, I think to me it makes sense when you look at it that way. With that said, I know that Patrick is just like eager to get on this. Let's talk about the casting of Raya and the Last Dragon.
Oh man. So I as a producer, filmmaker, and I think we all know the industry really well. Here's a chance. Southeast Asian characters. We have amazing Southeast Asian actors that are out there, but from a selling standpoint, they're not exactly an A-list, I guess. But I think we have A-list people. But I guess in the purview of the people that were behind this, they just went with history, I guess, and reached out to Daniel Day Kim and Aquafina and just all these amazing actors, and I love them. And that's what's so hard for me to talk on this. And when I was talking with other groups, because we love our community and we support our community as AAPI, and we all want that representation. We want these roles because there's very few, but this is a Southeast Asian film and Southeast Asian characters, and it's animation. Here's it really doesn't matter because you can put these and make these guys bigger A-list type people as actors, as like myself. We're here and we're talented, but the industry is one thing. They need names to sell the movie and to sell it overseas and into the bigger East Asian markets that have a lot of money, and so that's what's difficult, and so it's just regretful that they didn't do that. And because of that, another thing that we've spoken on that in the various groups I'm in, there's also because that has been done, some of us that hear this are not seeing the movie. And then again, like Mike said earlier, like some of the low numbers right now, because of some of those controversies, people aren't seeing it when it's a really good film. And I want people to see this film, but at the same time, and I think Laura, you put out a great post on Twitter. We should still check it out. We can still love a film, but also have issues with it. I think you put like the more you know.
Yeah, you can love a film and still critique it.
So very true. Exactly. And I'll pause for that moment to let everybody else get in on that regard.
Yeah, I mean, like Laura, you wrote extensively about this. Like you were mentioning Time Magazine recently that covered this controversy.
Well, my big thing is like, yes, we need to have more Asian voices, like Southeast Asian voices. And I love those actors that were cast, like Gemma. I loved her like forever, for a long time, since like Humans. And I love Daniel Day Kim. Everyone knows this. Like, but it's just heartbreaking that these are advocates for the Asian community, and so often Southeast Asians are ignored in this discussion of Asian Americans. Especially now with the anti-Asian hate thing. Like, I'm glad that these people are expressing things, but it's like we also would like to have the Southeast Asians have their voice too regarding it, because like just Richard, like, you know, with recently with his passing, you know, his brutal murder actually, we, like, I just feel like I don't want this story to be dominated by like all of us. Anti-Asian is all of us, but in the industry, we're often drowned out. Like Southeast Asian voices are drowned out. There's really no parts other than our trauma, like Vietnam War, you know, or like if they need like, you know, gangster or sex, like a tourism, like in the industry, it's hard for us to find parts, you know, and to have a story, a Southeast Asian story that's celebrated, you know, for its Southeast Asian roots. It's disappointing to see that, you know, we don't have that representation entirely in there, and it is being led by East Asian actors who has been fighting for our representation for our people. But it's like Southeast Asians are excluded in that representation in that story. You know, like when Cassie, the biggest quite for me, like for me was when Cassie Steele was first announced. I was like, okay, this is great. Like she's a great actress. I like, you know, Filipinos has representation. But with her removal, you know, replacement, which I love Kelly, and I'm happy with Kelly, and she's everyone. Obviously, I have like Kelly stuff all behind me because I love her. I love her so much. It's just, and I understand the changes for that, but to not have a dominant Filipino presence in the main cast, you know, since you took away their princess, like have a Filipino actress play Namari, have like a Filipino, like just have a Filipino presence, because they went from princess to none, like all three of you, like you, like it was princess to nothing. And I feel like if you erased Filipino culture and Filipino-ness into the story, then like you need to give them something, like give Filipinos a voice. So that was my major thing where I'm like, it was from princess to nothing. I'm not Filipino, but I felt that pain of like having that representation and then taken away. So another thing was like Namari, like with Namari, I'm like, I love Gemma, but Namari should have been someone Southeast Asian, because Disney doesn't promote this. We have 2 Disney princesses in Raya and the Last Dragon. You know, Namari is a princess. And so they haven't advertised that, because it's the idea of another Southeast Asian princess being played by East Asian. And I feel like, you know, if you had that by like another Southeast Asian, which I would prefer Filipino, because you took a one princess, give us another princess. I felt like it was kind of like a slap in the face when they said Princess Namari, and then that just punched me in the gut, because in the story, because you're telling us there's another Disney princess, another Southeast Asian princess who is played by East Asian. So do we really have that representation of princess? I will always forever have Kelly as my first Southeast Asian Disney princess, but it's kind of tarnished by having a second princess, which should be celebrated. Like, wow, we have 2 Southeast Asian princesses, but it's painful to know that it's played by East Asian person, you know, like, oh my God, Southeast Asian representation. It's like, but it's so hurtful to see people like mesh the Asians together like that. So it's like, yeah, it's difficult for me to celebrate like that aspect of the film when I hear Princess Namari. It was so painful, but yeah, that's my problem with the thing. It's that we're celebrated with the Southeast Asian story, the princesses, but it's tarnished by that East Asianness of it. Go on. I think I'm good.
Yeah, Mike, if you want to go ahead. I have a dog barking on my end, so I'm going to wait a little while.
Sure. I definitely want to hear everything you have to say, Lauren, because I think you do have probably, I could tell you've got a lot that you want to get out. But really quickly, I echo everything that Patrick and Laura have said. But here's the thing. We do kind of understand that people are going to want to cast like A-list big names and everything in roles. I think that's BS, in my opinion. And here's why. The Disney Renaissance, which we grew up with, The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, were Paige O'Hara or Jodie Benson A-listers, where it was Daniel Barnes, exactly. An A-lister, yeah. Eric. Yeah. None of these guys are A-listers. You could legitimately make a classic movie without an A-lister, especially in the world of animation. That's the whole point of animation. And to not get, I understand that Gemma Chan's a big deal, and you guys are using Gemma Chan for Eternals, and she's on the Disney lot 24/7, so I'm sure you probably went to get a sandwich. She was there and was like, hey, you want to be in Raya too? No, I mean, like, that's fine and everything. But if this is a story about Southeast Asia, you don't need, you know, my point is you don't need Gemma Chan to voice a Southeast Asian person. You could have easily, to Laura's point, there's a ton of Filipino actresses out there, whether or not you know them or not, whether or not they're A-list or not, they are good actresses. They are talented actresses. They deserve to be in these roles and could enhance the roles even better. I think, you know, Laura and I kind of had this conversation. We love Gemma Chan, and I do think she's a good actress. I don't think she gave it her all in this role. I'm sorry, I don't. I think you know, if you took someone like, if you were going to cast, you know, Gemma Chan as this role, and I'm not saying she phoned it in, but if she was going to give the performance that she was, I guarantee you an unnamed actress who's starved, who's trying to actually prove herself, is going to give it 110% more. Not somebody who's already got a bunch of credits and a Marvel movie coming under her belt. She's got nothing to prove, so she doesn't need to, you know, give it her all. But an up-and-comer like Eva Noblezada, you know, from Hades Town, and who was in Yellow Rose, who's a wonderful actress and a super talented singer. Yeah, you could have casted her. It's not like she's unknown. It's not like you couldn't have done something like that. Don't give me this bullshit that you need. Sorry, I don't know if we're allowed to cuss. Don't give me
it's for the nerds of color. It's fine. It's fine.
Sure. You don't need this BS that you need an A-lister, because you built your studio on non-A-list talent, and you made even better movies and classic movies back then. You just need a good voice and a good actress and a good story, and that you have the good story and you have the good characters here. You didn't need Gemma Chan to make this better. You just needed someone good to make this better. Not I'm saying she's not good, but you know, I don't see why you needed to do something like that. So that's my piece. I'm sorry I ranted and cursed. So,
but I do want to add something. Like, the reason why we lived through the Renaissance, but we didn't depend on China. We didn't depend on international like money making, and like if you notice, they are catering to China because China makes the population, they make so much. They're open right now too. Like they could build up, and I think that's why they have to have big names. But I feel like if you have one or two big names, it's fine. But to add like 5 names, 6 names, I don't think they need to have that. But I know that they were trying to sell it internationally too. But the thing is, they're Disney, so I feel like no matter what, they'll be okay.
Sure. And you know, I mean, if we want to take a look at recent examples, you know, a movie like WALL-E is a huge success, global and, you know, foreign and domestic. There's no voice actors in that. A movie like Ratatouille, your biggest star is maybe Janine Garofalo or Patton Oswalt.
Patton Oswalt.
Yeah, but Patton or is someone in China, your average Chinese moviegoer, going to know who Patton Oswalt is? Like, do they care? They don't care. Is it a good movie? That's what they care about, you know? And I think that you don't need, Disney has proven time and time again that you didn't need the A-list actors to sell this. You have the brand, the Disney brand, and you've got the story, and you've got the gorgeous animation. That's all you need to sell this. So, I don't necessarily buy the A-list casting as an excuse anymore, you know? Just give us a good movie, and that's what we care about, you know?
I want to just add, I completely agree with you, Mike, 100%.
Yeah.
And just like Laura said, it, like, you know, it was to possibly sell this over in China, but then there's also getting funding to make a film like this. You have to, you know, get certain names involved to get the funding. So there's all those other factors which is, you know, the root of explaining why this happened.
Sure.
But I completely agree with you. It didn't need it. We have so many amazing people that can make this into what we really wanted it to be, but you know, we still got to work there. We got to get people in financing, and we got to get us in those, you know, power positions to make that happen.
Yeah. I know Adele said a comment, like she quoted like saying like, you know, these people that we cast, like and like Adele's amazing, but I know that, you know, she didn't get to choose the casting. So, but you know, she said that they gave 100%. They were dedicated to their roles and everything, like the standard answer. But it's like, she's mentioned like, you know, we should be happy that there's an Asian story being told, but I think we need to stop accepting breadcrumbs when it, especially when it's Disney, like a Disney movie. If I understand like a small like studio was like building like, oh, I want to do Asian Southeast Asian story, but you know, I need it to get funding, I need it to be shown everywhere, I need people to watch it, and so we'll get big names. But with a movie like Disney, like we should not be accepting breadcrumbs, especially since they work so hard on doing the Raya, the Southeast Asian trust, the trust with all the experts and everything, and they got the screenwriters to be of Southeast Asian descent. They, you know, they traveled to Southeast Asia to capture the authenticity of Southeast Asia. That they didn't accept breadcrumbs creating the animation, so we should not accept breadcrumbs in casting the voices.
Exactly, yes. Oh my goodness, I have so much to say about this.
Go, Lauren.
I mean, okay, so I don't know how many of you were on the Zoom call for the press conference, but it was definitely weird being on there, hearing them talk about Southeast Asian representation when most of the people on the call were East Asian. It was a very weird sight. So like, okay, so just going off of like bring on A-listers, you know, to Disney films, like I don't know if any of you know this, but until 1992, that actually wasn't common practice at Disney. It actually was much more common to hire people who weren't as well known. What changed it in 1992 was that was the year Aladdin came out, and that's when, you know, Robin Williams was on as Genie. People were worried beforehand that if you bring on an A-lister, it'll be distracting from the overall film, but he only added to it, and that's what he's the reason why, you know, Aladdin is as memorable as it is. So that's what became common practice both in Disney Animation and as well as other animation houses like DreamWorks and so on. And I think for Disney, I think they've paved, I think, too far away from, you know, the initial idea of just bringing on the best voices to tell these stories. And like Mike mentioned earlier, Wally, well, I want to mention Auli'i Cravalho, who before Moana was just a teenage girl living in Hawaii. Exactly. We know who she is now because of Disney. It's because of Disney that now she's, I would like to think, of a household name. So like they don't need the star power. Maybe like one or two people fine, but they don't need it because their brand is already so built up and so beloved that, you know, they don't need to go that extra mile as opposed to maybe smaller studios where they probably do need to do that to gain financial benefit. But Disney is in no position to do that. They have the flexibility and freedom to bring on, you know, more accurate casting, which is why I now circle back to East Asian casting in this film. I don't remember where I heard this, but someone saying that, oh, don't blame the actors. And I'm like, no, actually, I do blame the actors because they could have deferred the role and, you know, suggested someone else to it. Like, you know how a few years ago when Daniel Day Kim was in that one movie, I can't remember the name. Hellboy, yes. You know how there was a white guy who was going to play who said, I can't take this role, I'm not Asian, let's give it to someone else. Daniel Day Kim got the role and said, maybe this could have been a way for him to pay it forward to a Southeast Asian actor who would have been more appropriate to take on the role of Bencha. Not to say he didn't do a good job. He did a fantastic job. But it would make more sense if there was a Southeast Asian playing that role, as with all the other roles as well. Like I was even chatting with a few friends of mine about, oh, they could hire this person, who are all, by the way, in past Disney projects, like Paulo Montalban, who was in Cinderella, Dante Bosco, who had a show on Disney Channel called American Dragon Jake Long, which, by the way, is on Disney Plus now. They have Diana Lee Inosanto, who was just in The Mandalorian, for crying out loud. Like, they have all these elusive Southeast Asians that they have worked with in the past. I mean, where the hell was Lea Salonga in this? Like, seriously, was she, like, too busy for you to get hold of or something, Disney? So, I mean, clearly, I just have so many thoughts. I'm like the movie is great, don't get me wrong, but the casting, yes, could have been a lot more accurate. And Keith and the others talked about this in the recent Hard Knock Media podcast. I don't know how many of you have heard it yet, but they did dive into the casting issues surrounding Raya. And I think one points that I don't think they touched on is that the reason why it means so much is that Southeast Asians haven't had as many opportunities as East Asian actors. I mean, we've kind of already touched on that already. I mean, like a few years ago when Crazy Rich Asians came out, I liked it, but I also was very critical of it when I was still with Yum Yum F at the time, and we talked about it. And I mentioned that the only reason why I'm being critical is because it doesn't represent me. Most of the characters are in East Asian. Like when we do see Southeast Asians and South Asians, they're mainly servants, and this is a film set in Singapore. Like, how does that make any sense? I mean, I could go on and on about this, but I actually do want to branch it to kind of like a sub-subject to this, which is Filipino representation. There are 3 of us on this call are Filipino. What I want to ask all of you is, did you feel represented in Raya and the Last Dragon?
No.
Well, I'm not the Filipino, but I'm just gonna add this. We had the discussion, Lauren, where I was like, hey, I want you to write something, because I got to see samples of it and everything, and I was like, Lauren, I need your voice, because I really want a Filipino representative, because it coming from me would not make the same impact. Mm-hmm. So I was like, oh, we need to work on this together. Watch it, and you let me know what you think. But yeah, go on.
Let's DM me about this later. I want to hear about this.
No, I feel way more represented on this call than I do in the movie. Don't get me wrong, and I talked about this with Laura actually as soon as I watched the movie. It is really lovely that there is a movie out there, a Disney movie no less, inspired by Southeast Asian culture. We've been talking about that this entire time. But Laura was asking me, oh, did you find any of it relatable? And I literally said no. The cultures that they're reflecting here, which, don't get me wrong, it's wonderful that they are reflecting a lot of like Thai cultures and Indonesian cultures and everything like that. It's not anything that I'm used to other than a character's named Tuk Tuk, and there's Tuk Tuks in the Philippines, but there's Tuk Tuks everywhere. So it's like, I that's the closest that I felt to being represented in this film, to be honest, as a Filipino, Filipino American anyways. So the customs and cultures that I'm used to, even down to food like lumpia or, like anything like that, I didn't really get in this movie. I'm glad that other cultures did. That is awesome that somebody out there felt that connected to this. That's super and most important. But personally, I can honestly say no.
My dad hasn't seen Raya yet, and so he's going to see it pretty soon. But he was asking me, so is this set in Vietnam? And I said, no, it's a made-up world called Kumandra, and he's the Filipino parent. So like the fact that he didn't recognize it as being, somewhat influenced by Filipino culture, I'm saying this very lightly, but yeah, that kind of in itself kind of speaks for it. But Patrick, were you going to say something?
For me, I definitely don't feel represented as a Filipino for like many of the reasons that Mike said. I do feel represented somewhat as a Southeast Asian because of the looks and the aesthetics and the colors and all of that. But because of all the other issues with it, I can't say that 100%, but my daughter looked at it and she enjoyed the film and wants to know more. And if it does that at least, then it's done its job, I would say.
Yeah.
I want to know how you guys felt though, like from Cassie Steele's casting, which was huge for the Filipino American community, Filipino Canadian, because she is Filipino Canadian, but the Filipino community. How did you guys feel when she was cast and then she was no longer in the film in general?
That hurt.
Okay. Yeah. When I first heard that they announced Kelly, I'm like, oh, cool. I wonder what role she's going to be in. Not knowing, she was cast in Raya.
Yeah.
Or as Raya. And I'm like, what happened to...
And I love Kelly.
Yeah, I love Kelly too. And like the fact that I got to interview her was amazing. But I don't know. Like, I don't really understand why they made the switch. I don't know, that that still confuses me to this day, as you can see.
Same.
Agreed. And you know, don't get me wrong. I do think Kelly did a killer job. I love her a lot as Raya. When I do see the Raya character, that's the voice that I'm going to think of. Make no mistake about that. But imagine you're Cassie Steele, you know, and to Laura's point, princess and then nothing. To get the opportunity of a lifetime, especially as a Filipino Canadian, sorry, who there's so little Filipino representation out there. You have a chance to actually be the voice of an entire culture, you know, one that it can proudly say, we have more than just Manny Pacquiao out there, you know, like to actually be given that opportunity and then to have it disappear overnight. That's gotta suck. Like, that's gotta be the worst feeling in the world. And for us who expected a Filipino Canadian to come out there and represent us and all of that, to have that taken away from us also sucks. I mean, probably not as much as losing the starring role in a movie, but it still sucks from a representation standpoint because we can no longer say that there's any Filipino representation in this movie. There's none. And that's, does it really, you know, affect the movie and the story of it? You know, arguably maybe not, but you know, at the end of the day, it still sucks for us because we wanted something like that. The closest that we could say to Disney touching on Filipino culture is that Lea Salonga was Jasmine's singing voice. Oh, and Mulan's singing voice, and that's it. I can't think of anything else in the history of this studio and the history of these features where I've actually seen any sort of Filipino representation. And we would have had that, but we don't anymore. It's just not going to happen at this point. So
yeah, I mean, not even in the casting at all. Like, that's why I'm like, Namari should have been like another Filipino person.
I mean, there are some, but it was under additional voices, including, of all people, Vincent Rodriguez III was under additional voices. And I'm like, really? The male lead from Crazy Ex-Girlfriend was just cast as an additional voice? Like, what?
Like, I know that if they wanted a Marvel star to be like Tong instead of Benedict Wong, we have Dave Bautista. He's Filipino.
Hello.
Yes.
So,
exactly.
there you go.
Exactly.
Like, and he's a good actor. So and he, as a brute, you know, warrior, that would have been great. But like, it's like there's so many like, I feel like if like I think Lauren and I talked about this because like I think you said, oh, why doesn't she just play Namari, Cassie? And I didn't know how deep Namari's story went, and I was like, I don't know, to go from a hero to like the villain, I don't know if anyone wants that, you know, wants that. But to see Namari goes through a transition from like antagonist to kind of being the hero of the story, I was like, you know what, Cassie could have played this. This is a deeper role than Raya. Like Raya,
exactly.
Yes, it's a beautiful, she's the hero, but the most character development comes from Namari, and she has the story. And I'm like, now I'm like thinking, I'm like, man, Cassie would have been great as Namari. And like, I kind of code Namari as queer coded, like, you know, she's just brute person with like a strong voice. And I think Cassie could have done that because Raya before is very with the first directors, the second directors, the character development changed dramatically. Like the Raya we see now is completely not the same from when Cassie was cast, you know? And so I understand why they changed it, and I'm glad that at least if they changed it, it was another Southeast Asian person. But I kind of wish that they had either Cassie or another Filipino voice to be a princess, because if you took that away, then at least you give us another princess, you know?
Yeah, a few months ago in the previous issue of Hapa Mag, which I also write for, I did a personal essay about why it means so much for me to see Raya and the Last Dragon, not knowing at the time that there were no Filipinos in the voice cast. And so I did touch a bit on the recasting of Raya from Cassie to Kelly, and I was thinking at the time about how Kelly was being promoted, like when the announcement came out that she would be voicing Raya, and she was being hailed as the first actor of Southeast Asian descent to voice a Disney lead, which is true, but I didn't really see that happening when the year before Cassie was announced to be playing Raya. And I was wondering myself, is it because she is mixed race? Because she is, like, she's Filipino and white. So that's why I was wondering about, like, it's kind of weird how this is being reported. And I wonder if that had any influence at all in her recasting. But again, that's just speculation. I honestly have no idea. But yeah, it's just very weird and very discouraging about how that all came about. Again, even though I love Kelly, I mean, she's been through a lot the last few years, and so I'm glad that she has this role to call her own. But yeah, like how it came about was just weird. But it was no, no fault of hers at all. So moving on, how do I transition from that? Laura, you mentioned about how you saw Namari as kind of a queer character, and there are already people out there, including Kelly, who kind of shift these two characters. I wanted to get everyone's input on that.
Yeah, anyone want to jump in before I add anything?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. So when I early press days of everything, when we started seeing it, I saw Namari, and she's a strong character, and she kind of was queer coded, where like a little bit butch, but and strong, and I just felt like, man, okay, I feel like she is kind of representing that aspect, because with Elsa, when everyone's like, oh, that's our gay queen, that's our gay princess, I feel like Elsa was more the femininity, where you can get away with, like, even though femininity is part of the LGBTQ community, I feel like Disney could get away with, like, no, Mary Haven and her are just Meriwether and her are just friends, we're not going to say anything. But with Namari, it's like she is drawn to be kind of queer coded, where you could like think about it, where she could be like part of the community. And so I got that strong feeling, especially their relationship throughout the thing. There's a lot of times when they have this tension, but it's like I also felt like the sexual energy. Like I'm just like, oh, I support this. And especially at the end when they look at each other, like it was yes, it's a sign of relief, like, oh yeah, we saved, it worked. But it also was like this like, I understand it could be a friendship thing, where it's like maybe we could trust each other, but at the same time I'm kind of like, I kind of just felt like heart eyes coming out from their look to each other. And I even did a tweet where I compared the way that they looked at each other to this movie called Saving Face, where the two Asian characters who are a couple, and they did the exact same looks as Namari and Raya. So I put it side by side, and I'm just like, parallels, where I could see how Raya and Namari can be like considered queer coded, like in their relationship, especially with Namari. Like I completely would understand if they like, it's something you can't hide from from Disney can't hide. But I know they will, because they wanted to sell in Asia, in China, where you can't show that kind of relationship. But I like, if Kelly says that she believes Raya to be gay, I completely support that. Guys, I'm done.
So I guess I can add on to this. Yeah, I heard Kelly talk about it. So I'm not really someone who ships characters. Yeah, like I took part in a watch party for Raya just the other night, and yeah, we were talking about this afterwards, and I'm like, yeah, not really my thing, but since this is being brought to the table, I personally don't see it. Maybe it's because I'm heterosexual that I don't see it, but also there are a bunch of heterosexual people who do recognize when two characters are meant for each other regardless of gender. But I'm more going off of the fact that there's just too much feud between them. Like, they were friends for like 5 minutes, and then they've been fighting each other ever since. And while yes, by the end they're on better ground, the odds of them ever getting together, I don't think is likely at all. I really don't.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's just me.
No,
Mike Patrick.
Getting together. Go ahead. So sorry. No, I don't think of them getting together, but I just feel like there is an energy and chemistry between them. But Namari definitely, though. Namari is a cat lady. Come on. Go on. All right, let's go on. I'm good.
I mean, I'm gonna be honest and say that I'm the wrong person to ask about this, because if anyone throws signals at me, romantic or otherwise, I won't know. I'm really bad with women and bad with picking up girls. So I'm gonna say, in all honesty, when I went to watch this movie, I was not thinking about any of that. Admittedly, I was so engrossed with the characters' rivalry, and admittedly, when I'm sure when I saw the moment that Laura is referring to in my head, when I saw that moment that Laura's referring to in my head, I was thinking to myself, "Oh, that's good. They patched things up. They're buddies." And it went over my. But if there are LGBTQ folks out there that are seeing themselves in these characters and in the dynamic that these characters share, why not lean into it? You know, why not allow them to see that in themselves? These people, Disney, Disney clearly has created these characters that the LGBTQ community has actually sympathized with, like Elsa, for example, but without any sort of real character-driven hints in any of their movies about Elsa's sexuality. And truth be told, these movies aren't centered on the sexuality of these characters or any romances. That's not the point of them. But at the same time, if you're not going to be explicit about it with a character like Elsa, and you're going to be more explicit about it, or more folks from the LGBTQ community are going to identify with this movie more strongly, just let it happen. Just lean into it. Why not? You know, I love that Kelly actually did that. I love that Kelly went out there and said that she does think, that Raya could be a queer community member. And to me, that is the closest anyone from Disney has ever gotten to admitting that these characters may have some sort of, relationship preference. Other than prince and princess getting together. I say, why not? More power to everyone if they can see and identify with the character. That makes the character stronger, that makes the story stronger. So why not? But yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Like, if you're of the LGBTQ community, if you see yourself in Raya and Namari, absolutely go for them, ship them. But without doubt, there has got to be a more explicit LGBTQ centered character at some point from Disney in the future. I mean, come on, it's 2021.
I mean, I guess they could have a grief council, and one of them can mention their deceased partner, like who turned to stone. You know, I'm just saying.
Yeah, I know. You add that one scene, and you're like, we represent all.
Yeah, he mentioned a partner. Okay.
Yeah. It's literally the equivalent of saying that you cured racism by giving Green Book Best Picture. You know, literally what it is. But yeah, I think Pixar has taken a lot more steps.
Yes.
There's a great short out there. It's called. Is it Out? That's the name of the short. Is that it?
The name of the short is Out?
OUT, yeah. I think it's Out, right? Or is that, maybe I'm might be completely butchering that. And if I am, I apologize, because I know it's a great short. I watched it. I don't remember the title off the top of my head. But it literally is about homosexual characters. And it's not focused literally on just, all of that. It's just a sweet story about identity. And it's great that we get a short. Why not a movie? Why not take that next step and just do a movie about it? So if anyone's going to do it, if Disney's not going to, let's let Pixar go all the way with it, I
mean, they did with Onward, like one of the characters is like, my girlfriend tells me has a son and all this stuff. So I was like, okay, another baby step, but okay.
Yeah.
Oh, Lena Waithe's character.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Patrick, what about you?
I echo everybody. If people ship it this way or ship it that way, I got the vibes. I saw the energy. I think it's just great. However you want to, feel. If they felt this one way or felt the other, I'm all for it. As long as people feel seen. If you feel seen, then that's great. So I'm all for it.
And yes, Out.
Yes, yeah, it's out.
Okay, it is out.
I might have to
Um,
check that out.
Yeah. One other subject I wanted to address real quick is the comparisons this film has gotten to Avatar: The Last Airbender. What's everyone's thoughts on that?
I'm not an Avatar guy. I had to
Oh,
like fake the funk when I talked to Dante Bosco. I know nothing about Avatar. I was like, oh, Zuko? Okay. I relied on the amazing Ates in the group who were the Avatar fans. Yeah. So I had to fake the funk on that one.
Oh yeah, they totally ripped off Avatar. No, I'm kidding. No, I'm kidding. No, I think the literal, comparison stops at the divided nations, in my opinion, and of course the Asian and martial arts influences. It's a completely different story, and I love the fact that yeah, you could compare it and say that it's Avatar-esque because it's a whole new world with all new characters and new species of animals and everything like that, warring nations, all that. But Raya doesn't bend anything. Nobody bends anything. No one has mystical powers. There's no one destined to come and unite the world or whatever. Raya's a regular person. And she's a regular I mean, she might be a princess, but still a regular princess, no powers. And really the power of the message is emphasized by the fact that she's a regular person that doesn't have any powers. A single regular person can make that sort of a difference. They just have to take that leap. With Avatar: The Last Airbender, which I love, God, I absolutely love. The reason that Aang is able to do what he does in terms of bringing about peace in the world is because he is the airbender. It's because he's the prophesized one. And yeah, I think that the comparisons are fair, but not accurate.
Yeah.
That's what I'll say.
Mm.
No, I agree. Because the thing is, like, Avatar is based on Southeast Asian, but also different other Asian, not only Southeast Asian. I think it's also like North African roots too, or Middle East. I feel like there's some other ones other than Southeast because I remember reading about it. And the costumes may be similar because I know that everyone's like did the comparison, side comparison to young Raya and one of the characters. But honestly, that's it because the thing is, if it's inspired by Southeast Asia, then yes, it's like they should have some kind of comparison. But when it comes to like the story, it's completely different. Because the thing is, both of them are based on Southeast Asian. So the thing is, if they look completely different, that means one of them was not based on Southeast Asian like cultures and traditions. So I feel like yeah, like some of the costumes look alike, but the thing is, if they're both based on Southeast Asian like cultures, they're gonna have similarities. But the stories are completely different. Like there's no bending the powers. There's no like fire, nature, all this stuff. It's a completely different story. But they were both inspired by Southeast Asia. So I think people need to watch it and realize like, this has Southeast Asian elements as well as Avatar. So they need to like see like it's just a completely different story, but there's a basis to it, and it's great. I think it's great that they have it because that proves that both of them were based on Southeast Asian aspects.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, echoing both of you on that. Like when I first heard the comparisons, like after the teaser trailer that came out, saying that, oh, Raya looks like Korra, and I'm like, because they both wear their hair in a ponytail? What? And then I read more into it because of course I did. And yeah, I'm just like, no. And this is before the movie came out too, because it's like, first of all, you haven't seen a movie, so you don't know if it's at all like Avatar: Last Airbender, just because there's common elements, for lack of a better word, elements. But yeah, it's a very different story from Avatar: Last Airbender that just both happen to draw similar inspiration from the same continent, but otherwise they're very different. Yeah, I would definitely recommend watching Raya and then like watching Avatar: Last Airbender and think otherwise. And Patrick, when you have time, you should watch Avatar: Last Airbender.
It's okay, Patrick. It's okay. You're not missing out. It's okay. Like I watched it because I had to keep up with pop culture, but I was just like, this is okay.
What?
I mean, this is a
It's
debate we could
okay.
get into.
I can't take this anymore. No, I'm kidding.
My to-do list for pop culture is so long, let me tell you. Like, I feel I'm a super nerd, but then sometimes I have to ask y'all as well. Do you feel like you're a super nerd, but then there's always just like that one that, no, I guess I'm not that nerdy.
You're a nerd.
You know,
Patrick.
there's
We
just so
know you
much
do it.
content.
It's fine. Don't ever feel like you're less than just because you don't know one aspect. We're not all designed to know everything. So, like, I watched it because I had to like cover stuff and also Dante Bosco.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, I probably am like one of your other people that had to cover. It's like, well, you're like Sisu. Like you turned in the homework that everyone else did.
Yeah.
I wanted to say, just if
Okay.
I one little point about Airbender versus Raya, what does it say about Southeast Asian representation and culture if you can only find two examples? And compare those to each other?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just because one has martial arts and is inspired by the same culture, it automatically has to get compared to the only other thing that exists out there, and people call it a ripoff. And it's kind of like, come on, guys, we've seen ripoffs of American stories like done time and time again, and nobody ever questions it. When a new buddy cop comedy comes out, no one's like, that's just a Lethal Weapon rip. Okay, film Twitter is like, that's a Lethal Weapon rip. But that being said, nobody cares. Nobody cares if Hobbs and Shaw is literally Lethal Weapon with bigger guys. Like, honestly, nobody picks at that. Nobody says anything. But one Southeast Asian inspired movie comes out and automatically it has to be compared to Airbender because that's the only basis of comparison out there for people. Give me a break, guys. You know, we gotta get more diverse in our storytelling here. I'm just saying, you know, if that's what we're gonna do.
That much is true, for sure. I know this is running kind of long.
Yeah.
So while we wrap it up with final thoughts about the film and anything else we discussed.
I think like everything that we talked about was like really important, and I'm really glad that we touched on it. Another thing I want to just add quickly was that the two films that had to be paid through paywall are two Asian films.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
was a disappointment for me because it's like, you know, you're not willing to release Black Widow. You released Soul. You released a whole bunch of other films that were supposed to come out in theaters. But when it came to the two Asian films that, you know, we don't have that much representation and get much funding for films, that, you know, like it's kind of like it's difficult to show the box office, you know, like because we like Crazy Rich Asians was fortunately successful, because if it wasn't, we would never expect to see more Asian-based films. So I feel like, man, you're putting Mulan and Raya and The Last Dragon behind a paywall, and you know the difficult thing is like Southeast Asian communities in the States are lower income than compared to like other East Asians, which people always look at like, oh, Asians are doing so well, but when you do a comparison and breakdown of all the communities, Southeast Asians are not doing so well. Like we're way less, we're way below, and so to put it behind a paywall is kind of like really, it's like kind of like dividing the people who are able to afford to watch it. You know, Disney Plus is they're already paying for Disney Plus to play additional, which I fully support, and I'll pay for that, and I paid for it for my family to watch. But it's hard. It makes it difficult for that community, you know, and and also not to have subtitles or audio in a Southeast Asian language. Like, you know, my sister was like, hey, I'm trying to watch it in Thai. Why, you know, they don't offer it in Thai, or even the subtitles. So that was kind of like, if you're gonna put this for Southeast Asians to see themselves, then you need to have it accessible for the people, the Southeast Asian communities, and the people who can't speak anything else or read anything else other than Southeast Asian dialect. So I feel like, okay, that's just another thing I had a difficult issue with regarding it. But overall, I love the movie, and I want more people to see it. It's just you're making it difficult for people of a lower income of Southeast Asian communities being able to have access to it.
Yes, that is a very good point.
All of
Definitely.
it. Shang-Chi is behind.
I'd like to know why. Yeah.
Going on.
Oh yeah, if Shang-Chi's behind a paywall,
Shang-Chi
I'm gonna
behind
like
a
throw
paywall.
everything
You'll
at
be
the
like,
like.
that's the one.
But I mean, like when I thought about it, like the logic I was coming from was like, you know, Soul is from Pixar. I mean, Black Widow is from Marvel, and Mulan and Raya are both, you know, products of Disney, not its subsidiary. So that was the assumption I was going off of for why they have a paywall. Not so much because they're both, you know, set in Asia, but because they're directly from Disney. But I mean, that doesn't undermine the fact that lower income families who want to see it can't access it without risking getting COVID by going to a local movie theater that happens to be showing it. So yeah, I mean, definitely more accessibility for sure.
I agree with that, and I'm sorry I keep talking. I feel bad about that, but
Oh no, you're fine. You're
This is a whole
fine.
discussion.
No.
We're meant to talk.
Yeah.
the thing is,
Go ahead, man.
I know it's not targeted. It may be subconscious or whatever. I know that's not like specifically, oh, we are going to pick this one movie from this particular culture and we're going to put it behind a paywall. The issue though is that ultimately, because it just luck of the draw happened to be these two movies, it sets up these movies and stories from these cultures for failure, up for failure. You know, because Raya's not going to gross nearly as much as we want it to because of that paywall, or get seen as much as we want it to because of that paywall. It's definitely not going to get seen as much as we want it to because they pissed off Cinemark, you know, or because they pissed off, how many other theater chains are boycotting them, you know, and as much as, you know, because it's an untested property, you know, these theater chains have nothing to lose by not showing them. If they refuse to show Black Widow, that's a lot of money that they could lose. But by choosing movies like this, regardless of what the culture is, but particular these two films, it sets up potential for Asian American stories and Asian American fronted movies to really fail at the box office, because people won't take the right lessons away from box office disappointment here. They're going to take the wrong lessons away, as studio executives tend to do. And that is really ultimately hugely unfair for these sorts of stories and these sorts of cultures and representation of our culture to thrive. So that's just food for thought. I'm kind of, it makes me sad, ultimately.
Yeah. Patrick, how about you?
All right. I love the film. I hope people see it. And I'm worried with what, like Mike said, because of various reasons why many won't see it. I want Kamandra Tales. I want more of these stories in all these different areas. And I love the film. Regardless of what we said about it, I think it's a great piece of art. But I will say, because of what went down with not enough representation, for me personally, it has put a fire in my belly. And I'm seeing that with all my other Southeast Asian friends and actors and the community. In my Filipinx Actors Barkada group, we discussed, again, like I said earlier, we discussed this and what we want to do and how we're going to build. And it's like, we just got to make our own stories. And so we're doing that. We have plans within our group to write our own stories. Those that are just actors that haven't written it. I'm a writer myself. So we're talking on that. So there's fire there. On Facebook alone, recently, within the past couple of days, I just brought up some other tabs. There's a group that I would suggest all you guys join as well. It's called SEA, Southeast Asian Stories on Screens. Let's make it happen. There's only about 45 members of the group, but it's the who's who of some people in our community. My buddy Jeremiah Abraham with Tremendous Communications, AJ Calamay with Xylophone, Dino Ray Ramos with Deadline, Rachel Lako and TN started it, and my friend JB Tadina, who is one of the additional voices in Raya, is in it. He's also part of my actors group. But we're all talking, we're having discussions, like there was a thread today, let's talk who are the SE Southeast Asian A-list talent. And we're all naming it off and naming people who are executives, who are press. And I chimed in there, and as well as the actors, and we're like all trying to support each other. Like, I haven't had so many new friend requests and follows, because we're like, fuck, excuse my language, F this, we need to support each other. We need to rise up. We need to, you know, come together as Kamandra, as community, and vibe. And so if there's one positive thing that despite all this, we're not going to let this bring us down. They may have taken our princess away, but we're going to build our own princess, and we're supporting each other. So check out Southeast Asian Stories on Screens. Let's make it happen. I'm part of a Filipinx filmmakers group. I've been buddy now with Diane Pargas from Yellow Rose, Isabel Sandoval, Cecilia Meja, and I met some other people through Lauren and through the Show Pal show that I'm doing. There's so much talk. I'm talking with Patricio all the time, who does Lumpia with Avengers, that I talked with Lauren, that Lauren helps me out with. And we're like talking stories. What Filipinx American stories do we have? And there's so much conversation going on right now, let me tell you. And if I had Clubhouse, because I'm an Android guy, I would probably not be sleeping right now, because so much conversation is occurring on Clubhouse. There's a movement going on right now, which makes me so it's going to make me tear up, but we are going to make this happen. Check out Filipinx Filmmakers if you're not part of that group. Check out Filipinx Film, TV, Media, and Editors that I'm a part of. And just today, as of this recording, Nancy Wang Yoon, I'm probably misspelling her name, she put out a thread today. If you're a Southeast Asian actor, please reply. I replied. My buddy JB replied. So many amazing actors are on this list. This is your cast list that you could have casted from for Raya, people. Like, there's so much of us that are out here that would have killed this. But, you know, we talked, you know, about some of the bad aspects, but there's do not despair. We are rising. We are not giving up, and we're going to make our own princess. But at this moment in time, I think Raya is fantastic. It could have been better, but I don't know. It's like that weird torn thing that we all discussed this whole hour and a half, and I'm rambling, but I just want to give people hope that, you know, those of us that are in the film industry, that cover it as press, you know, we're supporting it. Those of us that are behind the screen as well in front of the screen, it's happening. The wheels are turning, and there's a bright future ahead. And thank you, guys. I'm Patrick.
Yeah, no, of course. No, that's great, Patrick.
I actually responded to that thread, and then I reread the thread and saw actors, and I'm like, oh wait, I'm not an actor. Okay, I'm still a Southeast Asian creative, so that counts. Sort of.
Yes.
You're a writer. You're a beautiful writer. You're a screenwriter. It's amazing. Your work.
Yeah, that's why I was highlighting. It was like, okay, I'm not an actor, but I'm a writer, and I'm so sorry I misread the prompt, but here you go anyway.
No,
I still liked your share, though. I still liked what you read.
No, I think everyone should voice their thing. And if Raya's a beautiful story, everyone should watch. And Kelly Marie Tran is our Southeast Asian princess, you know, and she is like definitely my princess now. Sorry, Mulan, but it's important that this pushes more stories to come out, and they could see how important. And I'm glad that there is pushback, like criticism. Like, it doesn't mean we don't love the movie. We love the movie, but we could criticize it, you know, like, and hopefully they will listen and hear the voices are like, you know, this is a perfect movie, a great movie, but it would have been perfect if you had casting. It's a great movie. And I'm glad that it's pushing people to kind of come out and create more stories, and maybe, you know, they could like fund more stories, so because they could see how important it is.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, basically I'm echoing off of all of you when I say that I love Raya. The fact that, I mean, she's our first Southeast Asian princess and our third Asian princess from Disney in general. So that in itself, I think, is amazing. She's unlike, the film itself is unlike any Disney film I've seen beforehand. So I think that's what makes it very special. And I hope more people get a chance to watch it, whether it's right now with the paywall or 3 months from now when the paywall is gone. With that said, you know, echoing Kelly when I interviewed her last week, like, she is the first, but she should not be the last. No way should she be the last. And, you know, not to say there aren't other stories from Disney that do have Filipino characters. Like, we have Float from Pixar, from Bobby Rubio, and also that, I forget what it's called, but it was that Christmas advert from Disney UK that came out a few months ago.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, like, those are great, and I'm glad
on that one.
I'm glad I get to see myself in those, and I'm glad that my mom thinks that Raya looks like me. Like, that's honestly one of the nicest things she has ever said. But yeah, like, there could be more that can be contributed to what is already out there. And, you know, as Laura mentioned, I am a writer, up and coming screenwriter. So if there's any way I can contribute to catapulting that change and putting more stories out there from the Filipino American community, the Southeast Asian community, the wider Asian American community, from the mixed race community, because I am mixed race, then yeah, I mean, it's a hefty responsibility, but it's also my honor to contribute to that. With that said, all of us can be found on the Nerds of Color talking about Raya and the Last Dragon and then some. But I'll give everyone else a chance to plug their socials and anything else they want to plug. Laura, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I'm with the Nerds of Color, so please everyone read and subscribe. So make sure you subscribe to the Nerds of Color. Follow us all on all the social media platforms. We always are try to be up to date on everything, and the issues are at hand. I also am a freelance writer for other places like Nerdist and other like What to Watch and other places, but Nerds of Color is my home base, so I'll always be home with Nerds of Color. But yeah, so you can find me on here. I'm always on Twitter at @elsyourcool too, and it's just I'm so glad to like hang out with you three. I'm so happy to like just chat with you guys. But yes, next.
Mike, go ahead.
Sure. Don't follow me on social because I don't want to be followed by anyone. No, I'm kidding. I'm just being a cranky old man. No, you can follow me. I definitely, the Nerds of Color is my home, very much like Laura. I don't think I would have gotten started writing articles or imposing my imperialist opinions on people about reviews and movies like that if it wasn't for the Nerds of Color. No, I'm kidding. I love that I am a writer. I love movies. I love pop culture. And the fact of the matter is that I get to do this and I get to watch really good movies like Raya and talk to people about them is a bloody dream come true, honestly. So you can find me and my self-righteous opinions on Twitter at TidyBullBoy182, Instagram as well, and primarily all of my writing and hot air on the Nerds of Color. So,
Patrick, take it away.
Awesome. Again, I echo everyone. This is beautiful. I love all you guys. You guys are amazing. I'm happy to have been a part of this. Thank you, Lauren, for putting this together. Yeah, Nerds of Color is my home as well. Before I got down with the Nerds of Color, I was with at NRW, aka at New Release Wednesday at Nerds Rule the World, which is still my home base. But when I came across with Keith and the Nerds of Color, you know, Nerds Rule the World is kind of all encompassing, but POC with a different perspective, which is what, you know, what we're all about with Nerds of Color. It showed me there. I felt seen. So I was happy to get down with the Nerds of Color. So yeah, follow us at the Nerds of Color. And also with the Nerds of Color, I do Show Pow Show at Show Pow Show on Twitter and Instagram. That's our Filipino-centric, I'd like to say, podcast there where I interview Filipinx of various industries, not just in Hollywood, because we are doing big things all over the place. So get that representation, get that history. And with myself and the amazing Aches, because we are Hapa kids like Lauren, trying to find our closeness with our roots and all of that. So I'd love for y'all to check that out. For me personally, I'm at Strain since 1977 on Instagram and at Temple Far East on Twitter. And yeah, I just love pop culture, and I love my peoples, and I love y'all. And I really appreciate being amongst you guys to nerd out. This was great. Thank you guys so much. Kumandra forever.
Wait.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
We need to do a screenshot of that.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
We should do that.
Yeah.
was that Mantra Forever or was that Morphin Time? Because it kind of looked like. I just want to say, no, I'm kidding. But yeah.
So I'm also on the Nerds of Color, and you can also find my writing on the Center for Asian American Media, as well as on Hapa Mag. Our 14th issue is dropping on Wednesday, March 10th, so keep an eye out for that. I have a very cool interview featured in it, so hope you check that out. For me personally, I can be found on Twitter and Instagram at Ako Lauren Lola. My website is lolabythebay.wordpress.com. Hit me up on Goodreads. Very active on there. Bookworm author, as you can see. And yeah, so thank you all for talking to me about Raya and the Last Dragon, and hope everyone has a good day.
Bye,
Thanks
everyone.
Bye.